Hey everyone, 62 on a Wednesday night as the Warriors are taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers and in the fourth quarter of a rousing contest. We've got a kind of a great barn burner conversation here because the man I talked to is, I consider the reigning expert on Las Vegas, one of them. Of course, the mayor of Las Vegas might get mad at me, but among other people. But Rick Velotta is here. Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
That is correct.
Ooh.
Just think of heck of Velotta. You got it.
Is that Italian or is that?
It is Italian.
It is Italian. Okay, I got it right. See, that is what I get for having most of my best male friends are either Jewish or Italian. Long story. I don't know why that is, but that's the way I grew up. So anyway, hey, we were talking off camera, and you're originally a Broncos guy. You're from Denver, right? And the Warriors won.
I know that pains. I know that pains a lot of people there, but that is true. I grew up in Denver, so yep. I kind of said that, I think, for the first time publicly in a column I did recently, and basically I said, I recognize it's a character flaw to many of you, but, and then obviously, and as any fan of any team would know, it's very difficult to change allegiance, especially when you're in the same conference. So this Las Vegas Raiders idea is going to take a little bit of getting used to on my part.
So who you vote for? Who you vote for? Who you root for? It is that time of year. Who you root for?
Well, of course I'm going to be a Broncos fan for a long time, but it's obvious that the people in Las Vegas come from a lot of different places. So you're going to see a lot of people from there are Charger fans and Raiders fans and Bronco fans, and even, back east, you're going to see there's a lot of Bears fans in this town. I'm not sure why, but there are. Huh. And they come from everywhere, so there's going to be a lot of allegiances that are tested when the Raiders eventually get here.
Hey, so are the Raiders ready for Las Vegas, or is Las Vegas ready for the Raiders, for that matter? Where in your view?
Well, I think that probably the Las Vegas is ready for the Raiders a lot more so than the other way. And the reason why I say that is because, there's still a couple of seasons to be played in Oakland. And, one of the things that I've always said to friends who have been kind of watching this whole scenario play out with the Raiders in Las Vegas is that I know how painful it is for a team to get ripped out of your market like this. I've seen it before. Obviously, it's really disappointing for the Bay Area people who have a loyal allegiance to the Raiders, because this is like the second time it's happened. Yep. So it's not like this is an easy thing to have to deal with on a regular basis. But I think that the fan base has always been pretty firm here, just because of what the Raiders represent, who they are, their style of play, just their whole persona on the field. It's something that I think Las Vegans really have grasped, because of the fact that they view the Raiders as kind of the team that it doesn't matter if everybody hates them, but you're going to love them just because of the way they are and who they are. Mm-hmm. So I think Las Vegas has kind of got this look at what they would like to see in a team, and it's got Raiders personality written all over it.
Hey, from your estimation, where is the stadium at? Because it seems to, they say they're on schedule. That's one thing. I'm not concerned, but I just want to hear your view, not my view, on where the stadium is at and where the Raiders are at in the stadium authority as we speak.
Well, I've lived here a long time. Mm-hmm. in Las Vegas, mm-hmm. and I have to say that I don't think I've ever seen a large structure of this type go up as quickly as it's going up. Now that's a blessing and a curse, I think, because the blessing is that obviously these union laborers are really motivated to get this done on time and on budget as they've promised. But the fact is that sometimes, when you go at a rapid pace, you could possibly cut corners, and we don't want to see anybody cutting corners, especially on safety aspects.
Right.
Right. Obviously, this is a massive project, so there's going to be a lot of people on the site, and they're going to be looking at. There's going to be so many people wandering around doing various tasks in this whole construction effort that sometimes you kind of lose track of where things are, and that's a bad recipe in terms of things going wrong. Now, that being said, I know that the contractor's got an excellent safety record. Also, it's important to note that during the construction of the stadium in Minneapolis, that there was a death. So I know that they are conscious of that, and I think because of that fact, because that happened, they're always going to be looking out for the safety element 24/7. So I don't know. It's kind of a mixed bag. On some respects, you think, wow, this is just amazing how quickly it's going up because they have so much of the concrete already poured. And we're going to start to see the steel a lot earlier than I think a lot of people projected. So I would think that it's pretty much on schedule, if not ahead of schedule.
Hey, I remember reading the schedule for the material delivery, and it carries out to, I believe, October 17th. Has anyone talked about they're having to order steel under a tariff situation now that the tariffs are in place?
Well, it certainly is something that we've asked those questions because this isn't the only project that affects that. There's obviously some projects that are going on throughout Las Vegas, and I think you and I are going to talk about some of those later on.
That's right. Exciting stuff.
This is obviously a huge issue for these contractors because of the fact that there's so many things that are underway that could be affected by that, price-wise and otherwise, especially if this gets worse. I mean, it could get worse before it gets better, just depending on what some of the policies that are put into place by the president and the lawmakers that are in charge. It could have a very devastating impact down the road, but for the time being, I think because the tariffs weren't in effect for quite some time, and now all of a sudden they are, that it's one of those things that time will tell how that's going to be affecting the whole price of not just the stadium project, but all these others that are going to be coming up here in the weeks, months, and even years ahead.
Yeah, I tell you, they're going to wish that they were bald like me when they have to deal with what President Trump is going to do next. Wow, it's scary stuff. Hey, one of my viewers has a question. Barry Lee asks, how do you feel about the Riviera Casino being bought for over $100 million just to turn into a parking lot instead of building a new convention center? That's how he put it. So your thoughts?
Well, it's the Riviera was purchased as part of the expansion of the convention center. Now, it's right now it is a parking lot, but one of the key one of the things that really appealed the most to the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority when they acquired the Riviera was the fact that it has a Las Vegas Boulevard address. So what ultimately is going to happen is that convention center expansion, and it's a $1.4 billion project that it's not quite as far along as the stadium is at this point, but they're doing the designs right now in terms of getting that built. Once that goes in, then that is almost going to become like a gateway to the convention center campus. that will extend all the way out to Las Vegas Boulevard.
Hey,
so right now, yeah, it's a parking lot, and it's not very appealing. And a lot of people might say, gee whiz, they spent all that money for that. But eventually it's going to become the gateway to the Las Vegas Convention Center campus. And I think that people are going to appreciate it a lot more in terms of what that Las Vegas Boulevard address means.
Didn't we have the groundbreaking there? Wasn't that where we had the great champagne and everything? Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, you and I were there. Yeah, it was raining like crazy.
Yeah, I remember, I had the umbrella. I walked over from CES, which, by the way, how do you think, and this is a little off, but I'm dying to ask, how do you think the convention center expansion, once the first phase is done, how do you think that's going to change CES?
Well, I think that it's going to change it for the better in terms of there'll be, this is like 180,000 people that are here on a regular basis, and you're there every year, which is, and you know how shoulder to shoulder that can get sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Well, the fact that there's going to be another exhibition hall that will be built, that will ease the strain a lot on that, and it'll disperse people out a little way, so it won't quite feel as shoulder to shoulder as it has been in the past. Now, that being said, I'm sure that one of the things that the Consumer Electronics Association will look at is further expanding the show. So, we might see more than the 175,000, 180,000 people that come now, and instead see something that's closer to what Comdex looked like back in the in the 1990s. When it was really cooking, and it was like it was 215,000 when they maxed it out.
Yeah,
that could happen, but and certainly having all this new infrastructure in place. And remember, Zeddy, this isn't just the Las Vegas Convention Center that is expanding. We're talking about some other new convention amenities that are being built right now. In fact, just today, I wrote a story about it in today's paper. Just today, there was an approval by Clark County for the new Caesars Forum meeting facility that's being built.
Wow, they finally, wow, great,
so
great.
That's another, 400,000 square feet of space. Plus, it's going to be on the monorail line. Plus, it's going to have a lot of nice pedestrian access from different, those hotels that Caesars Entertainment owns over there, the Link and Harrah's and the Flamingo. All of those are going to have easy access. So potentially another venue there. Also, Wind Resorts is building a convention center. Also, MGM is expanding their convention center at the MGM Grand, and they just recently opened their new convention facility over at Aria. So this has been the big moneymaker for Las Vegas over in the recent history of the city. That being that, the smart way to do this is to go about filling the rooms on the weekdays as much as possible, and then letting things fall where they may on the weekends when tourists from California come over. So it's a process that has been kind of perfected over the years, and I think everybody is on board with it. And certainly that is the answer to some of the economic downturn that we see occasionally when we have the cycle of recessionary activity in our economy.
Hey, I got to ask you, coming back to the Raiders, what are Las Vegas people themselves excited about it? Because the project was started, it didn't go to a public vote or anything, and yet it's like, voila, here it is. What's the mood?
Yeah.
And how are the Raiders how are the Raiders treating this, and how are people getting used to the Raiders around there? Because when I'm there, I heard mixed reviews, but I heard people are excited. It's always I'm excited, but
yeah.
What's the
and you know the history pretty well, Jenny, as far as what how this came about, and you're right. There was no public vote, and that irritated a number of people. I think irritation is probably a mild way of putting it, but the fact is that this was all along an economic development play. And the way it was viewed initially by Steve Hill, who was the head of the Governor's Office of Economic Development at the time, was that, listen, we can solve 3 problems with one fell swoop. Those 3 problems are, 1, we need an economic shot in the arm. So this is a big job producer. 2, we need something that will develop a bunch of new tax revenue. So we need a venue that can host some of these huge concerts that only appear in stadiums. I mean, you see the tours across the country. Las Vegas is noticeably absent on any of these concert tours that involve performers who can sell out huge stadiums. So now all of a sudden we have an opportunity there. And then third and final thing is we needed a place for UNLV to play football, right? The stadium that they play in now, Sam Boyd Stadium, is an old and falling apart facility that isn't modern by any stretch of the imagination. Certainly, the people at UNLV, they might be a little bit think too highly of what they are at this point. But the fact is they want to move up in class. So they needed a stadium that they could that they could put the Rebel football team in. And oh, by the way, wouldn't it be nice if it was a really nice stadium that would attract recruits that would want to play here? And oh, by the way, wouldn't it be nice if it was closer to campus, which this is? And oh, by the way, wouldn't it be nice if it was indoors? Because a lot of those early season games on the UNLV schedule, it's just, everybody wants to go because the season's like brand new and everybody wants to get excited about the team. But the fact is that even when it's 7 o'clock at night, it's close to 100 degrees out. So it's not the most comfortable thing to deal with early in the season. Well, so with all those 3 strategies in place, all of a sudden, the Raiders in the NFL became icing on the cake. This was something that really wasn't envisioned initially as where they wanted to go. But the fact is that there were some forces at work within the community, the person who owns the Las Vegas Review-Journal included, that were working to try to attract an NFL team. And I think initially a lot of people were expecting that it might have been the Rams, and then I think a lot of people were expecting maybe it was the Chargers. And then all of a sudden, the Raiders came into play, and I think a lot of that was driven by the fact that, at the Coliseum, they felt like they were not getting the respect that they wanted in terms of doing some of the improvements necessary to make that a quality facility. So it kind of played into Southern Nevada's hands just by happenstance in many respects. These 3 needs that were going to be filled by this new venue, plus the fact that there were all these people that thought, gee, Las Vegas, can we really be an NFL city? And by golly, it looks like we can be. So it just all kind of came together at the same time at just the right time.
Hey,
so
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think once that happened, people started getting more and more excited about the prospect of having the Raiders here. And, I think one of the things that you and I might disagree on a little bit is that, are the Raiders an international brand? I think that they are. I think that they're iconic. I think that they are, that's a team that could probably land just about any place that has a bent for football and be successful, including, look at how well they've done in Mexico City when they've been there, and some of those, some of those places where they played out of town and they still attracted large crowds. Well, the fact is that now that that it's just kind of on the edge here, and we're almost to that point. I think a lot more people have come out and said, "Yeah, Raiders, that would be a great thing to have here." And again, I'm very sympathetic to the people of the East Bay because I know how tough this is to accept. So it's kind of bittersweet in some respects. Of course, I live in Las Vegas, so I'm going to be happy about this, seeing it unfold here, even though I know that a lot of people in the Oakland area are going through some real pain over this.
Well, there's a lawsuit. There's a lawsuit being constructed. That's how.
Course,
that's
yeah.
just kind of
well,
like, you know.
there's that too. So and we'll kind of have to wait and see how that plays out. But if it plays out the way a lot of people are expecting, then the move is still going to happen, but possibly some dollars will change hands, and the Coliseum will get some damages. The people in Oakland will get some damages in return. Kind of hard to say at this point. I know it's still early in how that's playing out, but you're right. That could be another factor that enters into this thing.
Yeah, Jim says. I'm sorry. One of my viewers, Jim made a remark. He says, "I think Las Vegas is a great move for the Raiders. You're close to San Diego. You're close to LA. You're starting a team. Would you want to be in North Carolina or some flyover country?" It's interesting. And then Kevin KD says, "Will Vegas be excited when the Raiders, when they lose the colors and name?" He's being facetious. We don't know how that's going to turn out, because I don't know that's going to direction. The also going to go in that direction. They don't know what they're going to do quite. But I think I want to come back to I want to stay on the course and stay on the rails, but. Because what I find intriguing about this whole deal, Rick, is that, okay, my background's in city planning and economic development, and my first job was with the city of Oakland, and I am at heart a guy builder. My mom says, you get back into planning, but that part of me, I have to admit, and I've said this to my viewers before that watch every night, finds this really exciting, because it's a new infrastructure, it's new building, you know what I mean? It's the state of the art, supposedly, and hopefully, and everything else. My number one concern, this is something that has been a concern of mine, one of two concerns of mine, is can the Raiders afford a $1 billion sponsorship price tag? Have you heard anything about naming rights agreements? Can they score $500 million or $600 million? Because that's what they're going to need. The Falcons Stadium cleared $1 billion in sponsorships, and they're going gangbusters. And I'm wondering if the Raiders can do that. Has anyone talked about it in your review?
I suspect that they can, and you're right. And that's still early in the game as well, because every time I see Mark Bedane, I ask him that question about where are things at in terms of sponsorships, where are things at in terms of naming rights for the building, that type of thing. But he says, "Oh, just hold on. We'll get to that when we need to get to that." So, but guys like you and I are impatient, wanting to know the answers. But the fact is that I think they can. I think they can raise that kind of cachet just because of who they are. This is, like I said, it's an iconic football team. The building is going to be fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
And there are sponsorship opportunities all over the place in that thing. Have you been to the stadium in Minneapolis, the U.S. Bank Stadium?
I have not, no. You probably got one up on me on there when I haven't visited that one. Yeah.
It is. Well, and you've been to the one in Atlanta, so you know what I'm talking about here. This is like off the charts in terms of opportunity to cash in on something. Now, those who think, well, okay, in Oakland, you're right there at Silicon Valley, and we have all these companies that are there to that can do sponsorships and that type of thing,
like Apple. Yeah.
Well, it's here that we have the greatest collection of entertainment companies and casino companies in the world, or not in the world, but in United States. I think that actually goes to Macau now. They have a little bit more than we do. But the fact is that the casino companies that are around they are going to be supporting this. And if you want to see what support looks like in Las Vegas, look no farther than the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean,
oh, beautiful thing. Yeah,
that's a Cinderella story if I've ever seen one. But it's one of those things where not only did the team get embraced by the community for all the work they did after 1 October, but they also were able to get sponsorship money, and it's been a fantastic thing. Now, the problem that they're going to face is that people are going to be expecting this every year.
Yeah.
And I don't know, hockey is one of those games that, and we're finding this out in this finals that, the puck can fall one way or the other it can change really fast. And so it's one of those things where we're looking at it and saying, gee, are we going to be able to sustain this over time? And the Raiders are going to have that same experience as well. And, I think a lot of people are fretting a little bit over the fact that it's anticipated that half the people that are in the crowd are going to be wearing the colors of the opposing team.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid.
That could happen.
But
that could happen.
Here's my other question, Rick. Can I apologize, Rick, because I've got politics. My friend Gavin Newsom's, I've known Gavin since '98, so I've been screaming because I'm happy that he got as far as he did. But I digress. Yeah. My question is that because I said the electorate. My question is, can that metropolitan area afford the PSL price points that are being pitched? And you mentioned casinos, and the question I've always had is, if the casinos are going to put money into it, other than showing up at the Nevada legislature to speak on behalf of the stadium and the Southern Nevada Tourism and Infrastructure Investment Commission Act, other than that, and why didn't they put money in it the first time? And with all these bankruptcies flying around, can they do it? Is it something that Jim Mirren wants to do? Because he's never spoken in favor of it. And I'm thinking, what's going on? Can you give us as much as you can, a kind of a hint of what might be happening?
Well, I think that it's one of those things. It's kind of a moving target because
well said.
It's changed pretty substantially over the last couple of years as this has played out. I think that you're going to see support grow for this when it gets closer and closer to the date when the doors open. And the other thing is that this town is full of a lot of fickle fans too, and that's another thing that's kind of scary. I mean, the Runnin' Rebels had a fantastic basketball program, particularly through the 90s when Tarkanian was the coach. But guess what? Now you can't even half fill the building because they're not as dominant as they once were. Now, that means that there's going to be a lot of pressure on the Raiders to perform well, especially in the early going. Now, are they going to be a Super Bowl contender in year one when they're here? I don't know. I mean, they're obviously working towards that, and I like the idea of Chucky being the coach now. So it's one of those things that over time we're going to have to wait and see how it goes, because it's just kind of hard to tell. You've got this great track record that's been put out there by the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yes. And
whether or not that can continue as far as the Raiders are concerned, that's another story. But we haven't yet quite seen how that's going to develop.
Barry Lee has another question. Zinni, can you ask him if there are 2 more arenas planned for construction and other than T-Mobile, and this brings us into MSG Sphere, of course, and also the Jackie Robinson, project, if you can shed some light on where that is. Yeah. And he
Sure.
asked, do you think that they will work with three arenas? And I think Barry Lee's question is a good one for another reason. You know, remember during the Cintiq meetings, Bill Hornbuckle, I believe, really pressed Mark Bedane and Mark Davis and company as to whether or not they could really get 46 annual big events. Remember that? So,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, and I kept looking at these
But,
other arenas. I think, gee, you know, what do you think?
well, I think that, well, first of all, as far as what other arenas are out there, the Jackie Robinson Arena is, you know, the guy has been very sincere in terms of working to try to get that arena built, but he has a real difficult time getting financing for it.
Oh, wow.
So right now, I would say the Jackie Robinson Arena is in a dormant stage, and we may never see that built.
Oh, that's too bad.
It's on the north end of the Strip, and it's certainly it's a you know a little ways away from where where T-Mobile is, but at the same time, it's down in the area that is growing fastest right at this point. You know, you've got Resorts World going in. You've got your favorite hotel. You told me Fontainebleau, which is actually now called the Drew.
Yes.
And then you've got the Las Vegas Convention Center expansion. All that going on the north end of the Strip.
Exciting
There's
stuff.
been some scuttlebutt, some discussion about maybe something is going to happen with that land that's over next to Circus Circus. And maybe there's going to be something going on with Wynn Resorts. They're obviously, they just purchased some land across Las Vegas Boulevard from their existing resort properties. So that's going to be an active area. So maybe if that plays out with a little bit more enthusiasm once some of these buildings get put into place, maybe Jackie Robinson's arena will have a chance. Right now, I'd say it's not looking too good. Now, the other arena, and it's
hey, can I ask you real quick before you switch over? What do you think the problem is in terms of him not being able to obtain financing? He certainly has the land, which is a great start. He's got the entitlements, right? What's the other problem in your view or knowledge?
Well, again, it's just being able to attract investors and financing to get it done. I mean, this is not a guy who is really wealthy by any means. He's not a Sheldon Adelson or a Steve Wynn. You know, he's a guy that is a smart businessman, but he doesn't quite have all the backing that he needs in order to put this building together. And it's obviously a multi-million-dollar investment by somebody. So that's what the problem is right now. Is he just doesn't have the cash to do it.
Is it sort of like the Mark Davis situation, but he needs a benefactor to step in and help him out?
That would be extremely helpful, and that would probably change the whole narrative if that were to come about.
Wow.
So then the other arena, and we'll call it arena, but in fact it's not really an arena. It's a performance venue. Is what you and I talked about earlier was the MSG Sphere. MSG meaning Madison Square Garden.
Yes.
And that is on the south end of the Strip, near the Venetian. In fact, it's going to be connected to the Sands Expo Center, which is the second largest convention center in town, behind the Las Vegas Convention Center. And I've been very fortunate, lucky, in fact, to be able to be kind of on the ground floor on learning about what the Sphere is all about. And if you want to hear more about it, we can talk about that.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I'm certainly versed in it. But.
Yeah, and I want people to know about it. And the reason is that, and it goes into our overall discussion of what's happening in the changing Las Vegas, because from what I've seen, this gigantic orb reminds me of. You ever see the Keanu Reeves version of The Day the Earth Stood Still?
Yeah, I believe I have.
That's what it reminds me. You know what I'm saying? It reminds me of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought, my God, they're going to build this thing. It's a 500. You tell him. You tell him, Rick.
Well, it's going to be a massive like globe-shaped building, but it's going to have some visual attributes on both the outside and the inside. And I think probably the most important thing to get out right off the top is that this is not a sports arena. There will not be sports be played in here. Possible exception, esports. Mm-hmm. Possible exception, maybe a boxing match. But don't expect this to be a place where you're playing basketball or hockey or anything like that, because this is geared for live performance. And we're talking about 18,000 seats, all of which are going to be on one side of the building. So it's like there'll be a stage, and it won't be a traditional arena per se, where you've got an in the round circumstance. But what we're going to see when this is completed is the most incredible technology for both visual and audio that anybody has ever seen. And when I saw the demonstrations of this, I was I'm a music guy, and I was blown away by it. Just some of the things that they can do, and it's a technology called beamforming, and what that means is that you can shoot basically a ray of sound in the same way that you can produce a laser almost. The way that they can do this is that they put these thousands of tiny speakers inside the walls, and this is like all the way around. Those speakers also have the ability to produce light. So you're going to be seeing as well as hearing. Now, one of the things that you can do is you can be very precise about where that sound lands. So what that means is that, okay, Jenny, you're sitting on one side of the arena, mm-hmm. and I'm sitting, and you're in the front row because you've got the front row seats. You're the guy. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting in the very back row, and the sound is going to be exactly the same regardless of where we're sitting, because of the way the sound is established. Whoa. Now, another application to that I thought is fascinating, because, Las Vegas kind of fancies itself as being an international hub for business and all things worldwide, mm-hmm. is that because it's attached to the Sands Expo Center, you can have business presentations as you would at any trade show occurring in this sphere. But what you can do is, okay, you can seat all the English-speaking people in one part of the building, all the German-speaking people on another, all the Spanish-speaking people in another, and you just beam that sound directly to that precise location. So the same presentation can be going on, and you can hear in your native language without the use of any wires or anything that any kind of a headphone device.
Excuse me, Rick, I have to tell you, I just found out that Gary Shapiro is listening, and he's saying that's where the keynote's going to be for 2021. There you go. Just Gary Shapiro.
Yeah, well, that exactly. Good for Gary. He's seeing the potential of this thing, and I know that he's got a relationship with Las Vegas Sands, so certainly that's not beyond the realm of possibility, since the MSG and Las Vegas Sands is trying to get this completed by 2020, mm-hmm. in time for the 2021 CES. In fact, 2021 CES is going to be off the charts. It's going to be really something, because of the fact that they have that new convention center venue that we should be completed. The Sphere will be completed. There'll be some new hotel rooms completed. Wynn will be completed. Today they said that the Caesars facility will be completed. So, wow. Gosh, this is going to be really, and it's all coming at us nonstop. Man. It's just amazing what's going on in this community.
Hey,
so
how is Las Vegas changing and all that? Because I remember talking with Tommy White when I came for the board meeting, and he said that Las Vegas is changing in a way where, you know, we won't know it. And what are your thoughts on that? And also, you know, because it feels like you're losing the gambling, how do I say it, strategic advantage to a degree, but you're gaining something else. But what is that something else, you know? And can it, you know...
I think one of the things that... go ahead, I'm sorry. I'm walking all over you here. Go ahead.
No, I apologize. I didn't want to walk over you either. I was wondering if is it sustainable, because right now as we speak, there have been, I think now this is the 10th or 11th month of visitor declines year to year over the previous month. And a lot of people have said to me, "Oh, well, Zenny, that's, you know, the result of the sad event of very sad event of 1 October." And I have to say that, you know, that's why I root for the Golden Knights, because it's kind of not exactly a solve, but, you know, something it just seems fitting in a way. But I digress. It seems like we're in the middle of a giant structural change, you know? What are your thoughts? You know, or is it just higher resort fees? You know?
Well, there's that too, and I'll tell you something. That is an issue that is growing and is picking up steam, and is certainly going to be one of the next things that a lot of people are going to be talking about in great detail, and including some of my own reporting. So that's kind of a preview of coming attractions on that. But let me address some of the things that you mentioned as far as some of the changes that are going on. First of all, we've known since probably the mid '90s that gaming is not going to be. We're not going to be the only place in town where you can bet, and we're seeing even more of an example of that in the months ahead, when sports wagering is going to be, nationwide as well.
Yeah.
It's going to depend on what each state wants to do. But just Tuesday, non-Nevada sports bet was placed, and that was in the state of Delaware. So, you know, Delaware's only got 3 casinos, so it's not so tough to make a transition there. But the fact is that all across the country there are riverboat casinos, there are tribal casinos that are on Indian reservations, there are state lotteries, there are all kinds of different types of gambling that are occurring. And so we no longer corner the market on that. Then you've got Atlantic City that's growing. You've got gambling in Colorado. You've got gambling in Mississippi. So it's not something that we own that market anymore. So how do we get around that? How do we figure out a way to keep our edge? Well, what we've done is that we've tried to, A, reinvent ourselves by putting new and exciting things out there that people are going to really want to see. B, we're becoming we're the entertainment capital of the world. So any place you go, you're going to be able to see some kind of an outstanding show. MGM has been very proud of marketing the heck out of that. And they own a lot of the Cirque du Soleil shows. They have a lot of the venues that can accommodate the big name performers. They have some residencies of big stars that are in town. Caesars Entertainment's done a really good job of that too, you know, with Celine Dion and Elton John. And there's just new residencies that are popping up all over town. So entertainment's huge, and I don't think that's something that can be duplicated easily by some of these other places that have casinos. So we know that we have to diversify the product. So what's the next step of diversification? Well, we've been talking about it already. Sports. Having our first major league team in terms of the Golden Knights, huge. Having an NFL franchise, huge. Obviously, there are some people who think that Major League Baseball is something that's going to be coming someday. Right now, I don't know that is something that's going to happen anytime immediately, because there's a lot of work that has to be done in Major League Baseball in order for that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But, we've already heard of the commissioner already talking a little bit about the next expansion.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the other one is NBA. NBA is probably the next likely place that we're going to see a major league team here. And guess who's been doing the legwork preparing for that? MGM Resorts International. How do they do that? By sponsoring a WNBA team. So they've got that connection already with WNBA.
That was awesome.
And that team hasn't been that successful yet. Mm-hmm. But the fact is that if the NBA looks and says, look at what they've done with the Las Vegas Aces with this WNBA franchise, I think it's possible that we could be seeing some more NBA games in the T-Mobile Arena, alternating dates with the Golden Knights someday. So and obviously that's where Jackie Robinson wants to go too. Mm-hmm. But I would think that MGM has kind of the upper hand in terms of that chase. So if we become the sports capital, and we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but then things are going to be just fine for Las Vegas. We don't have to be the top gambling destination in the United States.
But I think you guys,
as long as we keep our lead as the top entertainment venue, mm-hmm. and the top sports venue, then we should be all right. And we already own the UFC and mm-hmm. boxing mm-hmm. and NASCAR. We're now going to have 2 races a year starting in September. So we'll
you got the Motor Speedway, right?
It's something that is put together with purpose in terms of being able to get this to happen, and it's just good planning and good execution by a number of people who know how to do it. And it can't be done by any one person or any one company. Mm-hmm. I think that the Raiders is just, that's just one example of some of the things that we're seeing.
Right.
And I think even the Raiders were pretty blown away by how we do business here. I mean, nobody who doesn't live here hasn't seen anything quite like this place. It's pretty incredible to live here. I mean, I love it just because I've been here for so many years. I've been here like more than 25 years now.
Oh, you're dyed in the wool.
Yeah. So it's it almost makes me forget about those cold winters in Denver. So it's one of those things that you try to just do what you can to expand the universe, and we're doing it in a lot of different ways, which is very exciting, and it certainly is an economic boom for this community.
Hey, I gotta ask you. One question has to do with the hotel. The other one is more a style question that's all my own. I'll go with the one about the hotel tax and the bond issue. What are your thoughts on? And I'll ask a more specific question because I don't want to roll into the usual trope that I did. But why is it that, if you can remember during the Centec meetings, it started off with a 1% rate, and then it was 0.7%, and then it got bumped up to 88/100%. Whereas, and I'm curious, do you know why they lowered it rather than keeping it at 1% or raising it to 1.4% like it is for other, I think for the schools or something like that, which is, and the other question combined with that is, what can the school situation, in your view, be solved with all the, because the implication is you got all this, what's implied is you have this money sloshing around, and so somebody hearing this, like the people who are chiming in on my comments, they're like, well, gee, can't they fix their education problem? I mean, can you help us sort through how to think about that,
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm no expert in the education area, but I can just kind of tell you what we've been reporting and some of the things that we've observed.
Sure. Yeah.
Just being here. And first off, your question about why did they slash the rate of the taxes in order to and I think that the main reason on that is that they found that they wanted to hit right in the center of what can be sold to the legislature. Now, if you recall, when the legislature met, there was an overwhelming support for this because, this was an unpopular decision. It was something that required, because it was a tax increase, it required a supermajority. So they needed more than just 1 over 50%. They needed 67%. Now, when it was all said and done, the vote on that in the special session only met by one vote. One vote would have changed the outlook on that. So I think that what the strategy was going into this was that they wanted to be able to cover the bases that they felt that they needed to have to cover the bond issue, but at the same time they didn't want to get rich on it. And at the same time, they kind of recognized the fact that if this works the way we think it's going to work, then the tax base will broaden as this progresses forward, which is why they have it established that the payments towards the end are higher than the payments that are going on now. So, obviously this can be damaged by any significant event that happens. We saw a downturn in as a result of 1 October, but I agree with you that that's not the only reason why things are the way they are. There certainly are other factors involved. And just kind of a preview of coming attractions regarding a column that I'm writing for this next Sunday's edition is that I kind of explored that whole aspect of the last 10 months. We've seen a downturn in the number of visitors that come to Las Vegas, because I've been kind of stunned by that. The other thing that kind of stuns people around here is that meanwhile, while we're having these month after month declines in the number of visitors that came compared to the previous year, that we're also seeing record numbers at McCarran International Airport.
Right.
How can that be? How can we get a record number of people coming in through the gates and then visitation not having the exact same proportional change? And here's the reason why. The reason why is because, one, the number of passengers that are counted at McCarran are actually counted twice. Okay, when you fly in, that's one passenger coming in. When you fly out, that's another. So when we see 4 million people coming into McCarran, that's actually closer to 2 million. And that kind of explains why, our visitation is only in the neighborhood of 3 to 3.5 million on a regular basis. Okay, so that's one thing. Second, our biggest commercial air carrier at McCarran is Southwest Airlines.
Right.
Most airlines that serve McCarran do not have passengers that transfer. In other words, you get off the plane in Las Vegas, get on to go to Reno.
Right.
Most carriers don't have that, but Southwest, our largest carrier, does have that. So a lot of these passengers that come in aren't staying here. They're leaving to go someplace else.
So you're saying Las Vegas for Southwest is a hub, right? That's what you're saying.
They won't call it that. You and I can call it that because that's what it is. But they do not recognize the hub and spoke concept that a lot of airlines do recognize. Like obviously, Delta in Salt Lake City and Atlanta and Minneapolis, but Southwest does a lot of transfers of passengers in places like Las Vegas, Denver, Phoenix, and it's one of those things that they're not, McCarran doesn't actually like that so much, but at the same time, they know that Southwest is our biggest carrier, so we've got to tolerate it to a certain extent. So there's that. Then finally, the other part of it is that, oh, by the way, everybody in Las Vegas also travels. So we go to the airport. We're flying out and we're flying back in. So we're not tourists. So that's part of the count as well.
Hey,
all right. So that's the explanation.
Hey, Rick, I just want to fill in something just from observation this year, and I want your take on it.
Sure.
My mom loves to gamble on slots, and she observed that the number of visitors who are using slots at a number of hotels fell off dramatically, just, anecdotally, of course. And I was thinking about that with respect to the airport figures, and I wondered if anyone, and I'm sure if someone knows, if the number of people driving in has decreased versus those who've flown in, to explain, that maybe this demographic shift. I was just curious,
Yeah, well, and part of that, it's interesting you mentioned that, Zenny, because one of the things that I've spoken to the LVCVA about regarding drive-in traffic. Well, where is most of our drive-in traffic coming from? Obviously, it's not coming from Utah; it's coming from California.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So we're seeing a lot of people from California come in on a regular basis. Well, what happened in California in this past year? Wildfires, people's houses burning down. It was on our news all the time. Imagine what it was like in your news when you saw it. These big, massive walls of flame, and you weren't immune to that up in Northern California either. You had all that stuff going on in wine country. That was just awful. It's just horrible, horrible. Well, so one of the things that we talked about with the LVCVA is, what are you going to do when your house is burned down, or your neighbor's house is burned down, or your family's house is burned down? Are you going to go to Las Vegas for a vacation?
Nope.
Probably not. No. You're probably going to want to stick at home, take care of business, take care of things there. So, we would see a drop-off in California just because of the disasters that have befallen California during that time frame. So it's one of those things that again is cyclical. It's like everything else as far as visitation to Las Vegas, is it's going to go up dramatically sometimes, and it's going to come down, which leads me to the 10 straight months of decline that we've had. So any guesses as to how many of those 10 months they were comparing themselves to a record month? In other words, in 2016, we had the best month ever for visitation. How many? I'll tell you, 8 out of 10 they had the best ever. So when it comes to 2017, they have to compare themselves to a record year.
That's a great point.
And that's what we're seeing is that, so the 2017 numbers really aren't that bad, but they are bad if you say which is higher, which is lower. It's going to be the 2017 is lower, maybe by as few as 35,000 people. Okay, so it's not a big difference. Now, we finally broke that 10-month string in April. We had a turnaround, and guess what happened in April? We had the highest number of people who have ever come to Las Vegas in an April. So there you go. And guess what? It only beat 2017 by like 5,000 people.
Yeah, it was a hair.
It was just tiny,
not even a hair.
tiny.
Yeah, it was like, bloop. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was hey.
So, so the numbers don't lie, but they do tell a different story than a lot of people think. And that's not to say that there aren't problems regarding resort fees and those types of things. And like I said, we're going to explore that in some pretty good depth, I think, because that is definitely, in my mind, something that needs to be looked at in terms of how Las Vegas as a market is perceived. Because obviously, if people think they're getting cheated when they come here by seeing a rate for their hotel room
Right.
on the on a website or something, and then they get here and they have to pay like 3 times as much because there's a daily resort fee, they're going to be a little bit steamed, and I don't blame them.
Yeah,
so
no,
that's definitely a topic that's going to be pursued.
Hey, I'm curious. Speaking of the resort fees and sticker shock and everything, did anyone factor or ask? Because a lot of the reason why I point to the structural issue is since 2012, a number of casino operators, not just one, have spent a lot of money in China and now Japan. And I know China and Japan are not the biggest contributors internationally to Las Vegas flow. That distinction goes to Canada, but they are certainly, within the top 10, if not the top 8, if my memory serves. At what has anyone had a come to Jesus meeting with all the operators and said, hey, can you put a little bit more money here and a little less money outside because we're kind of eating our own seed corn?
Yeah, I think that first of all, there's only 3 companies that this really affects as far as Macau is concerned. So you're talking about Las Vegas Sands, you're talking about Wynn Resorts, you're talking about MGM Resorts International. So those are the ones who would be affected by this. Now, I think that a lot of local people see that the investment that these companies have made in China have paid off in a big way. Macau is now, hands down, the top gaming destination in the world.
Wow!
And a lot of it's because of the culture. The culture, and I've been to Macau numerous times, and I've seen this up close, and it's really astonishing to watch because, when and I'm sure you've walked through casinos and seen people get crazy when they're at the gambling tables and stuff.
No,
but when it comes to when it comes to watching people play baccarat in Macau, it's just off the charts. It's insane. You have people standing 3 to 4 people deep betting on the people who are sitting at the table. And it's just remarkable to watch because there's so much of this money that it's kind of pent up demand, and obviously the Chinese central government has a lot of control over how things play out in that market. But they've tolerated Macau and seen it as an opportunity for some pretty serious tax collections. I mean, the rate of gaming tax in Nevada is 6.75%. In Macau, it's 39%.
Holy cow!
So they're making a lot of money in terms of what is going to the central government there.
That is wild.
So it's and sure, it's a lot of people are critical and say, hey, why don't you spend some of that money here? Why don't you market China a little bit differently and get some of these people who are making that trip to Macau, maybe come over to the United States? Well, you've done international travel, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
It's so much easier to fly from Oakland to Las Vegas than it is to fly from Oakland to Macau.
Right.
I mean, it's a hard trip. It's a hard trip getting to Macau, and I've done it so many times that I can tell you that it's not any easier as the time passes. It just gets longer and longer, it seems like. But the fact is that those people in China are going to go to Macau. Some of them are going to go to Singapore, which is another market that is very, it's pretty popular over there with 2 major casinos in play in that city. And then, as you pointed out, this is a market that could be the next big place internationally is Japan.
Yes.
Right now,
yes.
there's
Yes.
like a huge competition in order to get your foot in the door in Japan. And the reason for that is that it's believed that this could be a $20 billion a year market. It's one of those once in a lifetime opportunities for some of these companies. And it isn't just the big guys who are looking at this. I mean, obviously MGM is at the table. Caesars International is at the table. Wynn is at the table. And even some of the smaller companies, Hard Rock, the international Hard Rock from that's based, I think, in Florida now, they're at the table. There are Chinese companies that are at the table. So this is going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. And whoever does win that concession is probably going to have a pretty wise investment and certainly a good deal of revenue to count once those buildings are in place. Because from what I understand, a lot of the Japanese gamblers are the same as the way Chinese gamblers are, is that they play pretty vigorously and they select the game that they like and they will play it for as long as they can play it.
Hey,
so
two questions.
It's sure.
First, how are we doing on time? Because this is really awesome. I just want to check in with you, see if you're okay.
I'm fine as long as I have to look and see if my phone is. Oh yeah, my phone's got plenty of juice left in it, so I'm good for now.
And the second question is, isn't there some sort of decision in the Japanese legislature coming up that affects this push toward gambling? Is it some sort of letting of licenses or something of that order? That I remember, I think I read about your publication.
What they're doing in that is that the for I think about at least 2 years, they've been the Japanese government, which is called a diet, is doing a firm study on how they want to do their what they call integrated resorts in Japan. And this study includes where to locate them, how many there are going to be, what kinds of policies are going to be in place. And by policy, I'm talking about are there going to be requirements in place for to address the issues of compulsive gambling disorders, and is there going to be admission charges, for example? In Singapore, they have this. If you are a resident of Singapore, you have to pay to get in. If you're a person from outside of Singapore, you get to go in for free. So that might set some people off because, hey, this is local. I should be able to go in for free. Well, that's not the case. What they're trying to do is protect some of their own citizens from the evils of gambling. And I say that kind of tongue in cheek because I cover the gambling industry, but at the same time, it's one of those things where they feel like it's important to protect their citizenry, and in order to be a qualifier for some of these concessions that are likely to be put to bid in probably by the end of this year, you're going to have a pretty serious problem gambling program in place to demonstrate how you're going to protect the citizens from hurting themselves financially by getting too deep into debt when you go into the casino.
Oh my gosh. Hey, I'm curious, and this is more along the lines of what I call Las Vegas style. Las Vegas, I mean, for all the business we've talked about and the Raiders and everything, it's known as a place you go to, and the saying has been, the slogan was, if what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? For example, right. I met a woman there during CES about 4 or 5 years ago. I thought I was going to get married. That was it. Didn't happen because that happened in Vegas. But will Vegas lose that? I mean, lose that edge? That some kind of freewheeling, social attitude that gives it that status of the place you go to be someplace else, or someone else rather, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about, Jenny. Let me just kind of put it this way. The What Happens Here Stays Here program that was put together by R&R Partners, which is the advertising consultant to the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, that is like the most successful destination marketing campaign ever produced, and they're quite proud of that, and the fact that they had to kind of explain how they got to that slogan. You know, the What Happens Here Stays Here, which has been somewhat corrupted to What Happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. But whatever, what it is, it's all about it's what they call adult freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And by that, they mean, you know, you can be free to do basically what you want, and you can be who you want to be, as you pointed out. Now, that's kind of like fantasy land to a certain extent, and certainly you can't do everything because there are still laws here in Las Vegas. But and you know, in some respects, that campaign was somewhat criticized because of the fact that it gave the wrong impression of what adult freedom should mean to people. And you know, obviously in Nevada and in California, you can now smoke marijuana if you choose, but there are still laws that govern that. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing, and this is an issue that I've been covering a lot lately too, mm-hmm. is that because of the federal government's outlook towards marijuana, mm-hmm. the Gaming Control Board and all the regulators here say those two shall not meet. The marijuana industry shall not cross paths with the gaming industry.
Yeah, I saw that. And if I thought that was mind-boggling. I thought, wow.
Yeah, and they say if we catch you with that, you could have your license pulled.
Wow.
And that, of course, is the kiss of death. If you have your license pulled, not to mention the fact that you can get fined 6 figures or higher if you know, depending on what the circumstances are. But you know, I guess the bottom line is you can't do just anything when you're in Las Vegas, although some people kind of get the impression that you can. Mm-hmm. Obviously, prostitution is illegal in Clark County. Mm-hmm. It's not illegal in nearby Nye County, but it is illegal in Washoe County, where Reno is, and it's illegal in Clark County. But you know, some people don't recognize that, and then some people are smoking pot out in the open, and that's not legal either. And so, you know, there's a lot of things that are misconceptions about what you know, what point your freedom begins and where it ends.
It's funny,
I think that you're going to.
I just want to chime in real quick because we talked about Stephen Hill a little bit back, and when I met you at that week and then came to the board meeting, meeting him was an honor. I told him I tried to call him 5 years ago. And the reason why I say that in the context we're talking about right now is the kind of social freedom that Las Vegas appears to have, if you will, so to mm-hmm. me turned into also the kind of development freedom that gave rise to, you know, this kind of Disneylandish, and I don't say that as a pejorative. I'm a fan of the Disney way from architecture perspective. I think it's a plus, this Disney approach, if you will, and other developments like the Raiders Stadium and everything else. But it just seems to me that all this is, marijuana has come into it because it seems like it's the classic rub. You've got marijuana, which is legal, but then you have the casinos that say don't use it, right? And
right.
You know what I mean? And it just seems like Las Vegas is becoming this model of contradictions, you know, but then at what point does it settle into just becoming this big city like Manhattan? You're like, oh, man, it's like crowded. And,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh my God. you know, is that where you're headed?
Well, you know, it's certainly something that people are keeping an eye on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest issue that we're seeing on the horizon here is water. I mean,
yes.
Honestly,
yes.
if Lake Mead, drains, which the level has been going down and down and down,
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be it's going to curtail our growth. Well, what the solutions that have been put out there in terms of how we solve this problem are multifaceted, and there are some things that are they're in play now. It involves court actions. It involves redrawing some of the Colorado River Compact. It involves pipelining groundwater from northern Nevada, which all the ranchers up there hate that idea. So, it's something that we want to grow, and we want to allow more people into the community to celebrate this type of economy that we have. I mean, people who first look at Las Vegas and say, "How could you live there?" Their minds are often changed after they've done it a little while, and part of it is
that's certainly true for me. Just
because of the economy is pretty going great guns right now, and it's an opportunity if you don't have a job to get a job. I think one of the things that's been really cool about about a lot of these construction projects that have been going on is that they paid pretty close attention to inviting small business contractors and minority contractors to the table to participate. Now, is it to the level where it should be? Probably not yet, but it's a step in the right direction, and it certainly demonstrates that there's opportunity for anybody who comes here, not just the select unwashed masses of the rich. So, or I guess that's a contradiction of terms, but you get what I'm saying. Is that it's not just for just select people.
Right.
It's an opportunity for everybody, and I think that appeals to a lot of people who look at this market. When you come, maybe you do like it, maybe you don't. I certainly love the way it works, and I enjoy the fact that a lot of the taxation that happens occurs on a level that I don't see. There's no personal income tax here, so that's very appealing to a lot of people who see this market for the first time. And when I lived in Arizona and in Utah, I would see a large percentage of my income going to the governments of those states. But
hey, come
here,
come to California.
Yeah, that's just it. Our feeding ground is California. We've got a lot of people who say, we got to recruit from there because not only are the taxes high in California, but so are the utility rates and just about everything else. But I do have to say that the California lifestyle is pretty much off the charts. It's pretty good, and there's a lot to like about Southern California and all the activity that goes on down there.
Hey, I got to ask you.
Truth be told, I love San Francisco. So
it's an awesome city. I got to ask you, how's Mark Davis settling in? Because I saw him at this a picture with these showgirls from this a review, and then he was at the Golden Knights, and he's become sounds like the man about town in Las Vegas. Certainly in a way he never was in Oakland. So. So what how is Mark Davis? How are people taking the Mark Davis there? What's the skinning there?
Well, obviously they like him because of the fact he's bringing his team here. The deal is that I think he didn't know exactly what to make of us either when he first got here, but he's starting to see the benefits of being who he is here in this community. And you're right, he's the toast of the town because of what his product is and what appeals to a lot of the people who live here. I actually ran into, we were talking about the Sphere a little while ago. The Madison Square Garden people came to Las Vegas to do a demonstration of what the Sphere was going to do, and it was such a big setup that they had to put it in a hangar at McCarran Airport. So we all marched into this hangar at McCarran to see this thing, and lo and behold, who's standing right there when I walked in the door? Mark Davis. And I said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "Oh, I'm part of this community. I want to see what this Sphere is all about." So he's kind of invested in what's going on here. Obviously, he still has a couple of years before he's all in here, but
Right.
The fact is that's got to be a tough situation for the Raiders in terms of having one foot in one city and one foot in another, especially with this controversy that's gone on regarding the 2019 season and potentially 2020 season at the Coliseum, because that's probably not something that's going to end particularly well for somebody. I don't know who, but
it's
I think you would agree with me that that's on a course that's irreversible, and it could turn out to be pretty messy.
Yeah,
so we'll have to see what happens.
And as I said to my viewers, and I said to you off show, is that the Raiders and the NFL, it's not really the Raiders' fault entirely. This was structured by NFL Ventures and owners, certain owners, and I think the group of owners that has in modern tradition went against Roger Goodell, led by Jerry Jones. And I'm not saying that to insult Mr. Jones or be critical of him. I'm just pointing out a fact that, look, I've known Roger Goodell since 1997 and actually 96. And I know for a fact that this move pains him because of the court cases that the NFL has fought regarding, just having events next to casinos, and now it's this. And so it sets up for the NFL and for Roger the ultimate conundrum and contradiction that he has to deal with. And he's a master politician. People laugh when I say that, but when I break it down with them, they change their mind. He's a master politician, and it just seems to me that at some point the league and it has to really, and I'm told they do have a plan for transition, but what they've lost by the way they decided to do this relocation are fans that could continue their viewership increase at a time when, because of technological change, viewership is going down, right? But
yeah,
they didn't do that, and now what they should have done in our case, in Oakland's case, to come back to what I'm trying to say here, is they should have just been straight with us, rather than now you pick up ESPN and it's, well, Mark Davis had these secret meetings. Oh man, so it's like, and there are attorneys who look at this and they're salivating. They come to us and say, oh, by the way, we want to take on your case for free. You don't pay us, right? So that's the situation we're in, and there are two great cities, two great regions that deserve better. Las Vegas doesn't deserve the headache of having to be a spectator in something that could affect them, and Oakland doesn't deserve to be treated in a way that it's been treated when it's been so loyal to a team for many years, and that's where that sits there. Hey, it's 12:55.
I agree with you. Saying that. I mean, the fans deserve better in Oakland on this, but
it's 12:55.
But on the other hand, I'm happy for my own town, so we'll see what.
Here's the thing. I want to say this too. So I know you got things to do, and I got to take my mom to the airport. But and I want to close out my viewers too, but because I was going to bring Chris Dobbins on, but the reason I didn't is this is one of the best exchanges I've ever had on anything. And as a guy who's a bourbon, I know some Raider fans are like, oh, come on, more Raiders. But as I say on my show, you have to understand a football organization in the context of the places that it's in. And there's no better way to do that than in a conversation like this and with an expert like Rick. And but I love Las Vegas. I mean, I have had tremendous times. Every time I go, I was there twice this year. Las Vegas Sevens are at Sam Boyd and other facilities around town, right? And so, and it's to me, when I think of American culture, I think of Las Vegas as much as I think of the Bay Area or any place else. So, I'm really, I have to tell you, Rick, I'm torn. It's like,
oh, I'm sure
it's torn. I'm torn because of reasons we've talked about. It's and the fact that I like both areas, and there are people who are always like, oh, you hate Las Vegas. No, I don't at all. It's I hate the situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand that.
Sure. That's really it. But and I say because someone said the slogan in Las Vegas is that everybody wants to be your friend, and I really, that's really true. I really have experienced that over and over and over again. I've had some of my best moments in life in Las Vegas. It's, it just is. But I say that to say that, and I want your take on this, and and I'd love to have you back too. I wish the NFL had done this differently. I really do. The way that they did it just there are just too many upset people for justified reasons. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I agree. I think that it could have been done a lot better than it was. Again, I'm not going to be too critical because we're the ones who are getting the. I know that's. I laugh, and you and I can laugh about this, but it's at the same time we're saying, but it's still sad. It's just not. It wasn't right. So
yeah.
There you have it.
Here's the thing. We forgot it's called the Fontainebleau. When is it going to be completed? It's now called the Drake? The Dre? Is that it?
The Drew. The Drew.
Excuse me,
yeah.
The Drew. What's the deal with the Drew?
Yeah, well, that's just it. Nobody seems to know, and we've talked to the people who have purchased it, and I don't remember exactly what the reason was because it didn't seem like it made a whole lot of sense at the time, but it's a pretty lengthy process that they have to, not only do they have to redesign a lot of what's going on inside, because that building was dormant for quite a long period. It still is for a long period of time, but it also had all the furnishings removed from it. So there's a lot of work that has to be done to get that back into shape. But the reality is that it's right on the doorstep of the new Las Vegas Convention Center facility. So it's going to be probably in a pretty good location for that. And I have every confidence that with some of the backing that they have with some of the corporate hotels, that they're going to be in fine shape once they get that done.
Hey, I know this isn't your area, but you want to predict the governor's race for Tuesday?
Oh, for Nevada?
Yeah, for the primary coming up. Yeah.
Well, I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that Adam Laxalt is going to win on the Republican side. Mm-hmm. He's just too strong and too entrenched. Although he is extremely conservative, and in some parts of Nevada that plays really well. But unfortunately for Dan Schwartz and for Jarrett, it is too far behind to be able to make an impact. Now, as far as the Democratic side is concerned, that's really interesting because it sounds like Gene Giuliani is making a pretty good push as things turn out. But whether or not she can catch Steve Sisolak is it's going to be interesting to see. I think the more interesting question, and I'm putting myself, getting ahead of myself here a little bit, is a Sisolak versus Laxalt race, and how that would play out, because I've seen some polls that indicate that Sisolak would win that, but everything would have to fall into place exactly right in order for that to happen, because even though you've got some pretty liberal pockets in southern Nevada, Las Vegas specifically, and there's some growth going on in terms of numbers in northern Nevada, the rurals could control that whole thing. I mean, some of it just all depends on who comes out. Yep. I mean, if the Sisolak supporters come out in southern Nevada to come out really strong, then that could be like a really neck and neck race. It'll be interesting. But as far as this next Tuesday is concerned, my guess is Laxalt on the Republican side and Sisolak on the Democratic side.
Well, we'll leave that there. That's an alarm, folks, going off. I gotta go and check and see what's going on. Rick?
All right, Jenny. Well, this has been fun.
It's been a lot of fun. All right, folks. Oh, actually, it was one of those false alarms, I think. I hope. I better check on that. All right. All right. Hey, so it's been a lot of fun. Definitely. I'll have you back. And hey, everybody, thanks for watching. And subscribe to Zenny62 if you haven't before. Hey, thanks again, Rick.
Yeah, you bet.
All right, man. I'll see you. Okay. All right. Hey, so that was fantastic. That was great show with Rick Velotta. Folks, I'm going to chime out and see what happened. In fact, let me go check. I'll be right back, okay? Let me go check on that thing. Phew. Okay, fortunately everything is okay. It was a false alarm. Phew, a false, excuse me, whoops. It was a false alarm, and phew, thankfully, yeah, it was a false alarm. Thanks for sticking around, folks. That was a fantastic program with him. Originally, I had the idea of having Chris Dobbins come on, right? But, you know, my normal way is to have one person have their platform, right? Unless it's a group and we have a video where we have cameras here and everybody has it. And I felt bringing Rick on and then bringing Chris on in the middle, given the way the conversation was flowing, I thought would have been a mistake. So, but I'm so let me see if I can get a call to my friend here. If he'll see if he'll pick up the phone. Maybe he's find out. Let's see here. See here. And waiting. He may be. Okay. All right. So let's see if we can get the pad here. If I can get him, I can get him. If I can't get him, I can't get him. But at least I tried, right? Then I can take my lumps. Excuse me. Probably not. Let's see. I don't hear him ring. Just as I said that.
Hello, it's Chris.
Chris Zenny.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, you're on live. I apologize. What happened was we had.
I'm sorry, say it again. What was that?
I was on live with Rick Velotta of the Review Journal, and
I
wanted to have you in, but then he got on such a roll that I
good.
thought.
It was. That's better for your show, man. That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
And I didn't want to do him like that because it's the first time
that's good. Well, good. How was it? It was good.
Yeah, we talked about the changing Vegas. We talked about what he said. I thought was interesting. A lot of insight about how Vegas is sort of adjusting to the Raiders. To a project that people didn't really think was going to happen at first, and then they didn't ask for, and now it's happening. So it's more a wait and see. It's kind of like, let's see how this goes. But he said something I think is quite right. The closer they get to opening the stadium, the more minds will change, because he says it's the biggest thing that has ever been built around there. It's just it's huge.
I agree.
Right? So
I agree.
Yeah, so that's what he's talking about. And then of course, he's sympathetic to what we're going through as much as he can be, but he's also a Broncos fan. And he said that he said a lot. We talked not just about that.
Good. I'll check out the stuff. Yeah, I just got back from the game. So
hey, the Warriors won. They're 3-0.
Yeah, amazing, man. It was pretty amazing. So
wow.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. That's good stuff. Well, let's check in a little more tomorrow, man. I'll call you back and we'll get more about it. But I appreciate you.
You got it.
Always including me in there. So that was a lot of good stuff.
Quick question. I heard from yet another source that the city's closer to a lawsuit. Have you heard anything since we talked?
So I talked to, when I was talking about this, so I ran into Noel Gallo at the watch party tonight. And he said, they've got the lawyers coming out next week to finalize the deal. So, and I guess they got Barbara Lee involved.
So it's going to happen.
So
this is going to happen.
Yeah, it looks like it.
This is a scoop.
Yeah.
Wait, this is a scoop.
Yeah.
We got a scoop,
Noel was
folks.
like, we're supposed to get a lawsuit done. I'm like, well, great, good.
Wow.
Let's go.
Wow. So I'm putting out on Twitter right now. I said, talking to Chris Dobbins.
Yeah, put it out there. Noel told me that they're close to getting done.
Of Coliseum JPA said.
Yeah, I ran into Noel tonight. Noel and his beautiful wife, and Noel was like, yeah, this is what we're doing. So,
Aliza.
I'm like, great. I'm in. That's great. That's good to hear.
Ran into. Come on, Zenny, get your act together. I'm typing this tweet, folks, into. I've got Noel Guile here. Noel. Somehow Noel came out Neil. Noel, there he is. Noel Guile. First on my list, Noel Guile at Warriors Watch Party. Where was the watch party?
At the Oracle. At the Oracle.
Oh, how many people showed up?
They had about. They said about 13,000.
Wow,
it was pretty packed, but the upper level was empty, so maybe it was closer to 10,000.
Wow.
But still, it was really exciting. Again, you got a lot of people that don't normally have tickets, so it was really loud for only 10,000 people. So it was good stuff.
Wow. Said that.
I rolled with John Sasaki from Channel 2.
Oh yeah, he's with the school board now.
Who's now with the Oakland Unified School District?
Yeah, he's the PR guy there now.
Yeah, John's a real good dude. Yeah, definitely.
Said the Oakland is finalizing lawsuit against.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Raiders and NFL. Got it for next week, right?
Yeah, that's what he said. Yep.
All right, cool. There you go, man. Wow. All right. Breaking news.
Exactly. Zenny always has it. My friend Zenny, he always gets breaking news, brother.
Breaking news.
Right on, man. Hey, I'm going to give you the buzz tomorrow, brother. We'll talk more, okay?
All right, bro. Thanks for the breaking. You heard it right here on Zenny 62, folks. Thanks, Chris. You're the best, man.
Right on, Zenny. I'll see you, man. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks. Okay, bye.
See ya. Well, folks, you heard it here first. There's the news. It broke right here that indeed it's happening, and the city is going to sue the Raiders and the NFL. There you are, okay? Breaking news. So that's it. You heard it right here. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to close this down so I can make a quick video to announce what you've already heard and what is out there on, on my tweet. So I already put the tweet out there, okay? Thank you all very much. Go Warriors. See you tomorrow night. We can talk more about this Thursday night, all right? Thank you all. Love you guys. Oh, by the way, don't forget to invest in Zenny62. Go to Zenny62.com. All right? Just front page and invest, okay? When you can. Barry Lee, I owe you your shares, all right? Watch horror films. Keep America strong. Haven't forgot about that. And John Marks, I have an idea I want to talk to you about. We'll do that later. All right, folks. More news coming. See you later. Thank you. See ya.